Welcome to another episode of Ingrid's World. My name is Ingrid Paris Hicklin. I am the host and executive producer of the television show. On this show, meet Fairfax County Board of Supervisors Chairman Jeffery C. McKay. Jeffery C. McKay is a lifelong Fairfax County, Virginia resident. As chairman, he represents Fairfax County's 1.2 million residents. He was elected to the Board of Supervisors in November 2007 and elected chairman in 2019. Chairman McKay is also a regional leader. Currently, he serves on the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and on the Board of Directors for the Virginia Association of Counties, where he is the immediate past president. Well, welcome to the show, Chairman Jeffery C. McKay. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Ingrid. It's great to be with you. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview and to share information with our public about all the great things that are happening in Fairfax County.
My pleasure. So let's give our viewers the first part. Give 5 facts about Fairfax County that you want our viewers to know.
Sure. It's hard to just come up with 5, but I'll try to pick some unique ones. I don't think many residents realize that we are the safest jurisdiction of our size in the United States of America. We have over 50% of our land area is under a tree canopy, thanks to our aggressive preservation of trees and tree preservation ordinances. There's over 200 languages spoken in our Fairfax County public school system and across our community. We are home to 9 Fortune 500 companies, and it's one of the reasons why our economy is so strong. And I think, when we look back at our history, we have so much history here in Fairfax County. And I'm not just speaking of the obvious things like Mount Vernon, but I think a lot of people don't realize that we have one of the oldest African-American communities still in place along the Richmond Highway corridor in Gum Springs that was officially established all the way back in 1833. And so while we have a lot of great things happening today, we also have a really good, rich history in Fairfax County.
Beautiful. So what are the challenges facing Fairfax County?
Well, I think there's a number of challenges, and I think these are not just certainly Fairfax County challenges, but how we fully recover from COVID and the pandemic is certainly on our minds in Fairfax, and I think on the minds of many people across the country. Certainly with what's been happening with our housing market, making sure that housing is affordable here in Fairfax County is critical. And, there's certainly struggles with that across the country, but we know here, this is one of the most expensive places to live and to be able to purchase housing. And I think one of the other challenges that, we deal with on a daily basis is that for the longest time in Virginia, certainly with the Virginia Department of Transportation, a transportation focus was on moving cars. And what we're trying to do is change that dynamic. And it's not always easy in Fairfax County into one that is focused on moving people. And that means investing in pedestrian safety and multimodal transportation solutions and transit and heavy rail and BRT and some of those things. And so it's still, one of those challenges of taking older infrastructure and making it multimodal so that we can protect pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit users. And those are some of the challenges we deal with on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. So now, what do you see as a top priority as chairman of the Board of Supervisors?
I think that the top priority for me, and it's because it overarches everything that we do in the county. I grew up in the Route 1 corridor, and we had a great childhood growing up, but it was much later in life that I realized not all parts of the county looked and acted the same. And frankly, for a lot of reasons that we can do better on, we held certain communities back. And so for me, a focus on equity, a focus on our One Fairfax principles that, I helped author some years ago, making sure that when we make decisions at the county level, we intentionally look at whether those decisions are being made in an equitable fashion. And, equity is a word that gets tossed around a lot. Not a lot of people know what it means. For me, it means every decision we make at a county level must be evaluated to determine whether we're lifting up all parts of the county, not just certain zip codes, but all parts of the county, including parts of the county that we intentionally look to lift up because they've been held back for too long. And so the future of the county for me is built on multiple economic engines around the county, not just over reliance on one or two parts of the county. Great educational opportunities, safe streets, environmental amenities that are distributed across the county in a very fair way. And I don't say that to take any part of the county and hold it back, but how do we lift up the areas that have been held back to a standard that we expect in Fairfax County today? And so for me, it is my top priority in every decision we make to focus on that. I think it's building a much more resilient, better community that's more focused on lifting our people up as we move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that wonderful in-depth answer. So how is Fairfax County addressing the needs of the homeless?
Yeah, I mean, this is, one of our most vulnerable populations, obviously. I'm very proud of the work that we've done in partnership, because I don't think this is a issue that Fairfax County can solve alone. And so we spent a lot of time partnering with other nonprofit organizations who provide services, job training opportunities, stable housing opportunities. But we also invest a lot of our own dollars. It wasn't that long ago when we set up an office to prevent and end homelessness. It was an entire office in the county that, before was kind of neatly tucked under a different agency. And we don't want to sweep that under the rug. We want to be forward and say, this is an issue in our community. We're proud to have people every day who are working on it and addressing it. Certainly during the pandemic, we put a lot of work and effort into isolation and services for people to make sure that, just like in any of our population in the county, we didn't want COVID spreading and costing people lives just because they didn't have safe housing availability or support systems. And so we have seen a reduction in the homelessness population since that office has been established, a pretty significant reduction. And so we're going to continue to invest in transitional housing, invest in our nonprofits who are providing support, make sure that Office of Prevent and End Homelessness that gets significant resources from the county is able to continue to do their outreach. But long term, to solve our homelessness challenges, we need, in my mind, two very important things. We need affordable housing, which is why, our county board has made huge investments and moved the needle forward in affordable housing. And we need better support for mental health and substance abuse. And I don't think a lot of folks in the county realize that we put tremendous resources into those two areas. But frankly, there's a lot of room for improvement at the state level. And so we've been advocating heavily for better resources for mental health in particular. Most people who are homeless suffer from either mental health or substance abuse challenges on top of being homeless. And in some cases, that is why they're homeless. The last thing I want our listeners to think about is we have to change the optics of homelessness. Homelessness in Fairfax County equates to 20% of the homeless population are kids under the age of 18. And so, we have to think about this not in the old-fashioned way of you must be homeless because you don't want to work. No, people are homeless in Fairfax County, and many of them are working. Many of them are children. And so we have to do everything we can to help solve this problem and change for the general public their understanding of this challenge in the county.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're really painting the real picture of what is existing in Fairfax County. You touched on this already in your answer, but would you like to add more about how affordable housing is becoming a reality in Fairfax County?
I would love to, and I think it's affordable housing, accessible housing, I think is a public health issue. And for the longest time, it was looked at as just housing. And to me, I think we need to think about this as a public health issue. And so in doing so, one of the things we've prioritized, this county board has prioritized, is using every tool in our toolbox to solve our affordable housing challenges. There's not one answer. So we need the private sector to commit to affordable housing, and we're getting that through workforce housing commitments. We need the county to put their own money forward to leverage, and we've dedicated now a full penny to affordable housing, and we've made a commitment that we are going to build 10,000 new affordable housing units by 2034. And just a few months ago, that goal was 5,000, and we doubled it to 10,000 because in the last 3.5 years, this Board of Supervisors has already delivered through entitlement, existing or in the pipeline, over nearly 4,000 affordable units already in just little over 3 years period of time. And so we have to keep going at that clip. And this is about filling workforce gaps. This is about public health. This is about supporting our economy. It's become so much larger an issue than it's just morally makes us feel good to provide affordable housing. It has become an essential ingredient to successful economic communities. And I think our community in Fairfax gets that. And that's why this has become such a high priority of our board.
Wonderful. You know, the plans that you're making for Fairfax County. So here's an issue that you touched on also, but to elaborate more, how is mental health being addressed in the community?
Well, this is, in my mind, the single biggest post-COVID or COVID recovery issue. And I don't think it's just because of COVID. I have 2 kids in our public school system, and I think about the stress on our youth and where we're seeing some really unfortunate statistics is mental health challenges of our adolescents and our youth in Fairfax County. And so we're working closely with our school system to try to address as many of those as we can. Our kids are facing a lot of challenges right now, from social media and bullying to COVID learning loss to gun violence in schools that are tragic and have our kids on edge, to some of the divisiveness and conversations that are happening with kids. And what I find inspiring is when I go talk to these kids in classrooms, they just want to live in a world that respects each other. They want to live in a world where they can love their classmates without condition and, are very proud to live in a diverse international community. And so it gives me hope for them, but we have a mental health crisis in this country right now. And it's particularly bad in Virginia because when you think about the Community Services Board that provides mental health services, we in Fairfax County invest nearly $140 million a year in our Community Services Board. The state invests $38 million, and the federal government invests $7.8 million. So one of the things that we're trying to focus on is how can we get the state and our federal partners to take mental health as seriously as we do in Fairfax County, because we do better than anywhere else in Virginia in treatment and opportunities for people. But even with everything we're doing, there are still people falling between the cracks. And I do think that this mental health challenge is going to be with us for many, many more years. And some of it's going to be related to COVID. Some of it's related to a lot of other stressors. But this is the problem that we collectively need to come together and address in a very strong way. And just like affordable housing, we have workforce challenges in Northern Virginia. And if you don't have safe, affordable housing and people who are suffering from mental health being treated, then you're going to continue to have workforce challenges. We need everybody in Northern Virginia who can contribute to the workforce to be able to do that. And sometimes that means providing mental health supports and services to allow that to happen. And so it's an economic issue as well.
So that is so important to know that. Now, how is community safety being achieved?
Well, we are rethinking community safety. I mentioned earlier one of the 5 great facts about Fairfax County. I want your viewers to know is this is the safest jurisdiction of our size in the country, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is we have great people, men and women in public safety, who are constantly training and retraining. We make sure that our departments are best in class, and that they have the resources that they need. But that we're always rethinking policing. So instead of just throwing someone behind bars repeatedly, if they're suffering from mental health challenge or substance abuse, how can we divert them through our Diversion First program into treatment so that we're not rearresting the same people over and over and over again? And so that's rethinking policing a little bit, and why we have our Diversion First program that takes nonviolent offenders and puts them in treatment. We also have, different court dockets that deal specifically with veterans and individuals that need support and help more than they need incarceration. And so that's part of our diversion strategy. We certainly have a co-responder model so that our police can get clinical professionals side by side with them when they're responding to a mental health challenge. But we also need to recruit more police officers. And one of the things that makes me really proud is we've made some significant progress in this area, not just in numbers, but also in demographics. And so we pledge by 2030 to have 30% of our police department made up of female officers. And when I look at the last couple of recruiting classes, we're really making progress in that area with people who speak different languages. Sometimes they're very difficult to recruit for police work, and we're making real progress in those areas. That makes me very proud. But at the end of the day, we're the safest because we have a community that cares about each other, a well-trained first responder network in Fairfax County, second to none, and a community that believes public safety is an essential ingredient to our quality of life. And we will never compromise that in Fairfax County.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're quite right. I'm glad to hear that. So here's the question that I wanted to have you touch on was, what has been the community response with immigrants coming into Fairfax County? We had them being brought. What has been Fairfax County response?
Yeah, I've been very proud of our response. We are a richly diverse, proudly international community here in Fairfax County. And when people are facing hard times in their nation and are coming to the United States for support, we know not everywhere in the country responds the same way. The response in Fairfax has been, how can we help these individuals? How can we make donations? How can we be there for them? There's certain images in my mind that will always be concrete. And one of them will be when I went out to the Dulles Center that was processing people who were coming over from Afghanistan, seeing the relief on the faces of these individuals to be on the ground in the United States, in a community where our residents were coming in at the same time making donations, where kids who had come here for safe haven were waving United States flags and playing soccer in the asphalt parking lot of the Dulles Expo Center. And, when you see that, you have to have some moral compassion for these people. They've lost everything in their life, and they're just proud to be here. And the least we can do is support them, help them integrate into our community, help them find jobs, help them find housing. And our community response has just been overwhelming. The biggest problem that we had, certainly with the Afghanistan immigrants and also people who came escaping from the Ukraine, is when we asked our community for donations, we literally got so many, we didn't know how to process them quickly enough. And I think that just speaks to the quality of people that live here in Fairfax County, and their compassion and their support for not only our richly diverse community, but also how we can extend our hand to people who are suffering in other countries to help them. And it's really something we can be very proud of.
Indeed, I would agree with you. So how did Fairfax County respond to the pandemic?
We did an amazing job. I have to thank our network. I've talked network before because this is not just one person or one handful of people, but not only did we get a lot of federal support in the way of money, and we got that money right out the door as quickly as we could to help small businesses survive closures, to help people who were losing housing, to provide meals and utility support for people who were suffering. We got as much of that federal money out the door as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly could at the peak of the pandemic. But what our recovery strategy was really based on is getting people vaccinated. And with our equity clinics in particular, As a result of those, no jurisdiction in Virginia vaccinated more people than we did in Fairfax County. And I think that's huge because it's necessary, as we've seen across the country, not only to save lives, but to help rebuild our economy and get people comfortable being out in public with each other again. And so I have to, really salute our health department for the messaging and the information they put out about the importance of testing and then the importance of getting vaccinated. But most importantly, it's just so wonderful to have a community that believes that getting vaccinated is an act of public charity, that not only will it protect them, but it will protect everybody else that they interact with. They responded, they came in droves, they did the right thing. They inevitably saved lives. We inevitably saved small businesses. And, it was a remarkable COVID response, I think second to none in the country. And so I think our recovery will happen faster here and more fully and complete here than anywhere else in the United States. And part of that is because of the way in which we responded during the crisis to help people get through it. And so real amazing team effort.
So, what is Fairfax County doing to ensure people can retire in the same place they worked?
Yeah, well, one of them is, what we talked about before, the importance of affordable housing. And that's important for people at any stage of their life. So a good number of those 4,000 units I talked about are dedicated to age restrictions so that seniors can take advantage of those. Because senior affordable housing has become essential to allowing people to be able to stay in Fairfax. For those who don't want to relocate, this board proudly reformed our senior tax relief program to make more people eligible for senior tax relief so that many of them will be able to afford to stay in their own homes and not have to relocate due to affordability issues. And the other piece of this that's necessary for seniors is to be able to engage them and provide transportation network for many of them. Our fast trans service is one thing, but expanding transit, as I talked about earlier, is essential to affordability for seniors, but also just lifestyle. We know a lot of seniors are not going to be able to drive through their rest of their life. So how do they affordably get around to the things they need to get around to engage with the groups that they need to engage with? And so this is where one of our investments in transit, it's not often thought about in terms of our seniors, but it is the future of how many of our seniors will get around in Fairfax County. And so focusing on affordable housing, senior tax relief, and providing services specifically geared towards our senior population are the keys to keeping them here in the county.
So I have another question because we only have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
But what can the residents do to ensure that everyone thrives?
I think the best thing they can do is to always be engaged at the local level. Fairfax County is so well run, so well governed, in part because we get a lot of community feedback. We're not perfect. And so the best way residents can guarantee our future ability to thrive is to be part of that. Weigh in with us. Tell us what your concerns are. Tell us what we can do better. And citizen engagement is the key to making that happen. We do it well here, but we can always do it better.
Wow. And my last question for you, Chairman McKay, is what gives you the greatest joy of being chairman of Fairfax County Board of Supervisors?
Clearly, it's our people. When I was a district supervisor, of course, I got to meet a lot of people in the district I represented, but as chairman, going across every square inch of this county and just finding remarkable people who give back to their community, people who are engaged civically, all the different programs that they support across this county, and then just the diversity. Always reminding my kids that we live in a place where you can travel the world without ever leaving your classroom. What a remarkable opportunity that is for all of our residents to experience different cultures, to celebrate different cultures, and to celebrate our diversity and to be empathetic. We've seen that throughout the pandemic in ways I never could imagine. And so the people who live in this county are what give me the absolute greatest joy. And for me, it's just a tremendous opportunity every day to represent them and represent their interests, because this is a remarkable place to live. And sometimes we can easily forget that.
You're quite right. You're quite right. Well, I have to thank you, Chairman McKay, for being on the show. Your interview was truly inspiring. And I like to hope that also will inspire those throughout our nation to do what Fairfax County is doing. Because guess what? We're on YouTube also.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's going to be everywhere. So again, thank you so much, Chairman McKay. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Ingrid. Appreciate it.
My inspirational quote is from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Those who are not looking for happiness are the most likely to find it, because those who are searching forget that the surest way to be happy is to seek happiness for others. Thank you for watching the television show, and connect with me on Facebook or at Ingrid's World, and follow the show at Ingrid's World VA and in Twitter and Instagram. Never miss an episode of Ingrid's World, because the show is on YouTube as well as on ingridsworld.org. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, and ask yourself this question: what am I doing to make this a better world? Bye-bye now.